then let me move on to the next topic, which we did address already on culture and leadership. And that's actually, they're all intertwined, these topics, which it's always makes it, a challenge in here. Are there any do's or don'ts that you would recommend from, and I'm going to put this also first to Jörg, from a corporate point of view, when the asset, because we talked about the team before, right? And we said, the asset is the leader, it's the team. They're very innovative, very flexible when in operating. How do you ensure that type of culture stays when you bring it into a larger team? And this is already touching also on integrate later on, but whenever you bring it into, if you acquire and you integrate, there are things that change. And I've seen many deals go very badly that way, where even our intention was not to kill, do a post-murder integration. It unintentionally happened. And Jörg, would you have any tips on there from your own experience as well that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Yeah, I think, and we're talking here about an M&A situation where you go in and you buy the asset and you want to integrate the team. I think in the get-go, there needs to be a very, very open and transparent discussion with leadership on what is going to change, what is not going to change, what are requirements from the corporate. Do you give arm's length? Do you say, no, you need to come on my premise and follow the office layout rules and the car park rules and the travel guidelines? Or do you say, no, I leave you a little bit distant and you can keep your culture? And I think there needs to be very open and transparent discussions around this. And it's very often the very basic things that you have here. You have a founder or a leadership team. They've built a company and they've sold the company to a corporate, and from then on, the new CEO comes, who is now the CEO. He comes to the office in his Porsche and he has cashed in and he's happy. And now he works in a large corporate. And how does this culturally work? Just really every day, right? He comes to the office and how does this work? How does he interact in leadership teams? And I think it's important to speak about such things up front. There's no right or wrong, and there should not be any red tape around this. And I think the second part is, how do you retain these individuals, right? These are partly very highly compensated people because of a buyout. Do you have earnout structures? Do you have targets that tie people for the next 3 years or the next 1 year, the next 5 years? So I think these things need to be very well thought through. In any case, plan Bs need to be established. I think as a corporate, you do need to have a plan B. What happens if this guru innovator says, look, I can't take it. I can't be in this office and I'm leaving. What do you do then? And I think the more open you speak about this and point on the challenges, the better.
Thank you, Jörg. And I'm going to pass this on to Paul because I know he has a very unique experience in here. My own experience is, Jörg, I totally agree with you. What I see is, earnouts and retention bonuses, those are your insurance policies, or a retention bonus, more your insurance policy. Earnout is, can be used as that, but that's more about, earning the added value or the excess value that the seller thinks is in there. Those work. Within those, you need to have your plan Bs, absolutely. Succession planning as a corporate. You need to make sure you capture that knowledge transfer. But but the essence of keeping the culture is going to be about your organizational blueprint and your organizational design, which, as you said, should be defined up front. You need to have it clarified, but you need to also, I think, honestly look at your own culture and look, can this company operate the way it does as is in our current structure? And that should play a big role in the whole mapping of your governance map. And I'm always like, we're one step ahead. When you're looking at, how much governance and control do I have to give them? Will I smother them? Because it affects things like your KPIs. It affects items. How will they report and manage? Report financially also into your company. All these things play little roles. And if anything, the corporate reporting and all those things, you should plan a resource that can take care of it, so you don't burden the newco down with this too much as a startup. My other experience is most deals that I've seen, usually at the end of the retention period or the earnout, the owners leave because they decide for themselves, usually within 12 months, this is not something for me anymore. I don't want to do it. It's either because they have the Ferrari in front of the door and they want to go and enjoy it, or they feel too restricted in their creativity and ability to operate, and then they go off and they start something new. Paula, you are one of the unique cases, in my opinion, because I've only seen it a few times, where you actually stayed on beyond your retention and earnout periods, and you worked for a number of years, 6 years, if I'm not mistaken, with AAC Technologies. So maybe you can share your viewpoint and what was also interesting in your case, because culture is not just, the organizational culture. You also have national cultures. You were bought by a Chinese company as a European startup.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really sure where to start, but I think the Chinese leadership did a number of really smart things when they acquired us. One of them being to actually pull me into a global corporate role in AAC, and thereby I became effectively a liaison between China and Denmark, and I spent quite a bit of time in China. And so I gradually learned, the Chinese corporate culture, and I was really then able to sort of be the interpreter of, what does it mean when somebody in China says things like this or does like that, or, really, because I'd understood what that meant and how to go about it and what the implications were. And so I became sort of a filter, sounds kind of negative, but really a way, an interpreter between the intention from China and how that was interpreted in Denmark. So I think that was a really smart move. The other thing was that the team in Denmark then, at least for the first 2 years, myself excluded, were really given a lot of freedom in terms of how they were developing things. There was, of course, some technical milestones that needed to be achieved, but how to get there, was really left in the hands of the team in Denmark. And at the same time, AAC offered then a lot of advice or guidance, or put people at disposal for the Danish team. So AAC has a lot of expertise in tooling, for example. And so AAC offered the head of tooling in China to come and give some guidance in Denmark, really in a very guiding way, not in a sort of telling the Danish team what to do, but offered all these kinds of advice from key people in China. So that was also pretty good. And then there was a few things, it's the little things. We had a strong coffee culture. We didn't like coffee from a regular coffee machine, so we'd always had an espresso machine. And then after a year, that machine broke down, and we applied for a new one. And they're like, "Why do you need an espresso machine?" And that took a lot of negotiation, but it was really important for the Danish team because there was a strong culture around this. The same, in Denmark, there's a very strong tradition that the company throws a Christmas party every year. And suddenly we were asked to pay our own pocket for that Christmas party. and that, you know, caused an uproar. You know, you could have taken 10% of everyone's salary and people would have just obliged, right? But taking away the Christmas party. So maybe that's a piece of advice here, is that have a, you know, have an eye for the little things, because that's often what, you know, people really care about. And we were able to convince, you know, Chinese leadership that it's actually important for, you know, people's well-being and productivity, if you will, that, you know, we throw this Christmas party and that we have a fancy espresso machine, because there's a culture around that. Those were almost like the biggest obstacles in a way, at least for the first 3 or 4 years. And then towards, you know, as things matured, obviously the Chinese came in and took over more because things had to be matured for production, et cetera, et cetera. But I think initially a lot of freedom was given, and that was a really smart move. And then having me as an interpreter, as a liaison between China and Denmark, I think was a couple of clever moves from the leadership.
Thank you, Paulo. Those are very good points. A follow-on question. On the one point first, the small things, I'm laughing because I have the same experience. It was with a scale-up company that was acquired by a large corporate and based in Australia, and they had a monthly barbecue. And but at the barbecue, they always, you know, work would stop early in the afternoon on a Friday, and they would serve beer, alcohol. And corporate policies were no alcohol at these things, so that, you know, they kept the barbecue, but they took the beer away. Now, you know, you could just cancel the whole barbecue then if there was no beer, and you know that in an engagement survey, that was the biggest complaint we had, you know, about, you know, what changed and how it's so important for the culture, and we reintroduced that. So it's I totally recognize that. My follow-on question to you, Paula, and then we'll move on, also looking at time. Is you yourself, you stayed well beyond, and you know, what one of the things I was wondering that you might talk about is what I see why people do stay, if they stay, is because they see a challenge continuing. They, you know, having a clear role for themselves in the future, and my experiences from the corporate side, you need to make sure you provide that, you know, ambitious role in there. So it's not just the environment, but it's having the right challenge there, that the, you know, the people feel like, hey, there's a future for me in here to wanting to continue this. Did that come for you because they put you on that management team, or was there something else that played?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That was it. So I was continuously given some super interesting challenges, and AAC is a very innovative company with sort of a very innovative mindset, even though it's a very large company. I've never had the pleasure of working in a Western large corporation, so I'm not sure how that is, but this Chinese company is super innovative, you know, always looking at new stuff, and that gave me a lot of really interesting challenges, and the mindset again of the CEO was also extremely innovative. So there was a lot to learn there, and there was a lot of really exciting challenges that I was given.
I think working for a large European multinational and corporate, it can be super exciting. I had fantastic times in Siemens and Infineon. I have long-term friends from there. But a lot comes back to, I think, what we can condense here. It's about the people. It's about having respect for people. And sometimes they're very small little things they have, and their little kinks they have, and to be respectful and mindful, and not being full of judgment and control, and now I have to teach these people how to do ABC, but maybe where can I learn from them? What can I contribute from them? And that is in many ways, for the last 7 years, I worked for this Thai company. And if I took home one thing, is this level of humility, taking a step back and say, hey, maybe it's me who can learn something.
Yeah, I think that's a great great point. I think it's going with an open mindset and also being diverse. Diversity also helps bring in. It usually helps you get to a better goal. So it's about. I mean, we talk about governance or leadership still and governance and control, but it's about creating an environment with respect. So you have respect for your past and present achievements. So, what did you do in the past, and respecting each other's strengths. But it's also about, rallying towards a common goal for the future. And doing that also requires some leadership, but it's respectful leadership. It's not, just telling what to do, but it's doing it in a respectful way. We talked about how to keep a culture in a company. I think part of that is exhibiting, and Paula, you said it, the leader mindset of the CEO was one of the reasons you stayed. That's also a very important lesson that I learned. People usually will stay and work for someone else because they like them and they feel respected by them, right? It's not for the shareholder. And I think all too often, especially as a large corporate, we're excellent managers, but leadership is really about creating that environment where you can flourish in. And I think that also plays a very big role.